Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of One Piece Season 17, Part 1. Now, I'm breaking this up into two parts because there's 118 episodes, and that's a fuck ton to get through. And I'm kind of at a spot, like, granted, I've gotten past this spot, but I'm like 59 episodes. Let's kind of chunk it there and then deal with the rest of them after that. Because there is a kind of natural escalation within this Dressrosa arc that kind of lends to, okay, we've dealt with this stuff, and then we move on to another kind of thing. So, my biggest kind of issue at the point with this is that it's mainly execution. I'm overall like the stories and everything going on with Dressrosa at this point. It's just sometimes we kind of leave certain things hanging for a longer period than I would like. Like we get to a point after the big kind of shakeup kind of happens. It's like, what's kind of going on with them? Which we'll get to. And I think it could have been chunked up to like the tournament arc, Sanji's kind of stuff, Frankie with the Tontada, and kind of doing a better kind of natural escalation of being like, here's this arc, here's this arc, here's this arc, or calling it like parts or whatnot. So that way I could have like done a little bit of the parts so that way I could dive a little bit deeper into what goes on with certain kind of things. Though granted, there's a lot of kind of cool stuff that happens in this one. So, we start off this, they're doing the whole Caesar thing, using it to get Don Quixote Doflamingo, who is the warlord and king of Dressrosa, to resign from his position to pretty much force him to get screwed over by Kaido, one of the other emperors. However, we learn that Doflamingo is a crafty son of a bitch, and has pretty much put out a false report that he has given up his title as warlord, and that he is instigating traps, which are pretty well done for the Straw Hats. Now, the biggest kind of one he's got is for Luffy, as he has somehow acquired the Flame fruit, which was Ace's fruit. So he pretty much uses this as the whole tournament's grand prize, which, as a tournament arc, I'm fine with, but they don't really do much with. I really wish that it had been its own kind of focus, and that way it would have the attention it would deserve, and to see how Oda would have done a kind of tournament thing. I mean, it's not completely bad or anything. They pretty much do mainly battle royales throughout most of it, which you get some nice kind of fight scenes and everything going on with that. And the thing is, it just works pretty well to get Luffy into that kind of position. So, our group's there, they're pretty much getting ready for the rendezvous. They've split up into their teams, however, the teams kind of get a little bit funky. That's mainly because the ones that are going into town to pretty much figure out where the Smile Factory is, Luffy, Frankie, and Kinemon. But however, Sanji goes with them when he was supposed to stay with the Sunny and kind of provide that kind of, and Zoro also goes as well, that kind of, physical kind of fighting support for the Sunny. So we mainly just have Brook, Chopper, Robin, and Momonosuke waiting there on the ship, which then leaves Law, Usopp, Nico Robin, and of course Caesar to go to Greenbit and do the handover procedure. However, they don't know that they're pretty much getting screwed over, and they do these like barely usable disguises, which I fucking love, like old man bearded Luffy, bearded Sanji, mustached Zoro, Frankie doing his own stuff, bearded Kinemon. They also get introduced in this as they kind of go in. We get the whole kind of spiel with the Tontada, mainly as fairies. It links up later on more kind of Gulliver's Travels kind of style with Nico and Usopp. So they also get introduced to who I thought would have been the samurai because of his whole getup and everything, but we learn later on that this is Admiral Fujitora, who is on the island and actually wants to abolish the warlord system, and he's really kind of weird. I mean, he's blind, he's got really good senses because he's winning at this gambling, and then he's got the press fruit powers, which he's able to utilize pretty much kind of more like a gravity kind of thing, and also just flinging fucking meteors. It's like, what the fuck? And the thing is, he's like, he wants to abolish the warlord system, but he pretty much lets Doflamingo run a little bit wild in this. It's like, what? Why are you letting him do this? And he also comes in conflicts with the pirates and everything. I'm like, especially what's going on as we get into the halfway point that I decided to cut off at. It's like, what the fuck? So everything pretty much goes to shit. Luffy pretty much gets sucked into the tournament because he learns about the flame fruit. It's like, he's got to get it to make sure that he honors Ace's legacy. We see that there's also toys that are running around and are sentient in this in Dressrosa, which is like, what the fuck's going on? Zoro's sword gets stolen by one of the Tontada fairies because they've got this whole kind of thing. Because throughout Dressrosa's history, the Tontada had been utilized as a slave labor thing. However, the Riku family at one point decides to do reparations and say that they can take whatever they want. Because this becomes important. The original family that had utilized the kingship of Dressrosa, okay, that's a weird way to put it, but held the kingship, the monarchy of Dressrosa, was the Don Quixote family. And the thing is, when the world government was created, 19 of the 20 kingdoms sent all of their pretty much monarchs to Marie Joie, and that's where they kind of lived. The only one that didn't do that was Alabasta with the Nefertiti family. Very interesting. So we'll have to see how that kind of comes back. But evidently, at some point, 10 years ago, Doflamingo was like, I want this place. And now granted, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but it sets the kind of precedent of what's going on. He pretty much did a kind of Russian Revolution and did his own kind of false flag operation where he utilized his string powers, which are kind of crazy and nutty, to control King Riku, which we see him utilize through this, and we see the bad blood that created for his family, and utilized him to kill and murder and just set fire to Dressrosa, where everybody hated him, and he came out like a hero. He also did this to other people and soldiers within the army of Riku, and he also had someone on his roll, Sugar, who was able to utilize the Hobby fruit power to turn people into toys. This is important because one of the big kind of characters, Kiros, who we see as the one-legged soldier as we go throughout this, was one of the best kind of gladiators, and his daughter, Rebecca, is in the tournament to try and get the flame fruit power to take on and challenge Doflamingo. And we see some other characters in there as well. One dude who's got a grudge against Straw Hat because of his grandpa, because his grandpa did some kind of really big punch that made his cone head flat, and then Luffy was able to utilize a punch to make it big again, and he kind of just gets into some crazy and gnarly situations in the Coliseum, the Caritas Coliseum, throughout the whole kind of tournament arc. Sanji also gets linked up with the royal family in the person of Violet, where he's really in love with her, and it follows more that kind of Spanish kind of influence of like telenovela, like, I love you. And she's got the glare fruit power, where she's able to see in people's minds, utilize it as reconnaissance as well, make her very important and useful to the to Doflamingo's crew. However, she decides to go with Sanji and fight because she's actually been double agenting, and it's like, fuck Doflamingo. Zoro was able to get his sword back, but then of course he gets the lowdown on the Tontada. Nico, Robin, and Usopp pretty much get lost in the forest. Law is trying to do the handoff. No, okay, and Doflamingo pretty much expounds upon his treachery. We find out he is linked up to the Celestial Dragons at that point. It's like, what the fuck? What are you kind of doing? Because he was able to utilize the world government to put out a false report and utilize CP's Aegis 0, which is even higher than the CP9 we saw. And they're like in play as well. It's like, what the fuck? But Luffy learns about like his crew getting kind of like screwed over. The Sunny gets hijacked by one of Doflamingo's crew, this art woman who is crazy. But they're able to get up there and kind of help out Law. Sanji's able to get over there because Violet, is able to tell him about that, and he gets off. But the thing is, they need to escape from Doflamingo, and Law gets really fucked up by Doflamingo, and then they get set upon by Big Mom. The Sunny then pretty much just leaves them. They needed to try and like get away from Big Mom at that point, so they pretty much disappear after that. It's kind of like, okay. Then everything kind of starts to escalate on Dressrosa. We get the Tontata pretty much making their move. The Toy Soldier / Kiros making his move as well, because they thought that Doflamingo actually was resigning from the Warlords and being as king, so they thought this is their move. They know where the Smile Factory is because it is staffed by the toys, because Sugar's able to use the Hobby Fruit to turn people into toys. And then once that is done, and she's also able to make a contract with him, because she wasn't able to make a contract with Kiros, so he's free to do kind of whatever he wants. They kind of force this slave labor onto people, and the memories of who you are removed from the people that you love. That's why people don't know who Kiros is. That's why Rebecca has forgotten her father, that he is her father. We've seen that horrible stuff's done. She lost pretty much her grandfather, who King Riku fought in the tournament as well, and is still alive pretty much because of a deal that Viola did, and that her mother was killed by Diamante, another one of Doflamingo's crew, and who kind of is like reminiscent of Steven Tyler with the Ripple. It's just like crazy frontman kind of stuff, but he's got the Ripple fruit power to be able to make anything kind of like rigid or ripply. He's the one that's pretty much doing the tournament stuff at the moment, but Luffy decides to get out of the tournament and actually sees that one of the people in there, Sabo, is back, which is really kind of cool, and that he's the one that's going to fight towards the end, and eventually does get the flame fruit power, and it's like, yeah, that works out. Bellamy also makes another appearance, and it's kind of cool to see how he has kind of changed a little bit. He is still trying to get into Doflamingo's good graces, but he's still dealing with the fact that Doflamingo doesn't give a shit about him. And we see him kind of fighting that as things start to escalate. We also get introduced to Bartolomeo. Now, I kind of knew that people had issues with Boa Hancock, but I haven't gotten to the annoying. I mean, she's annoying, but like it's when they're at a reasonable level. Bartolomeo is really fucking annoying to me. I mean, I understand that I would be like fanning a little bit over the Straw Hats, but it is to almost a degree where it's just like, please stop. Please. Like, Usopp's cowardice when he was trying to kind of deal with Sugar was a little bit annoying, because we've pretty much done the time skip, and I'm pretty much bringing up another character that's got kind of annoying qualities. I don't mind Usopp having to fight and deal with his cowardice and whatnot. I was just like, okay, I thought we kind of got past this kind of thing. Bartolomeo, on the other hand, is just like, I don't mind the fanning, but like it needs to be pulled back, because it almost dead stops certain kind of things in order to do this kind of joke, which kind of fits me in with more of the Integrity Farms kind of stuff in South Park. Now, I'm just mainly saying that he needed to be tempered more, because sometimes when he goes into this, it's kind of like a full stop, and you're like, okay, we kind of have to, I kind of want to deal with this other kind of stuff, because he helps out Luffy and the Straw Hats, which is a great thing. Even though he's kind of like a weird, pretty much delinquent kind of dude, call him Roosterhead, he's got the barrier fruit where he can make barriers by crossing his fingers, which is a helpful kind of thing, and he's really kind of helping out the Straw Hats as they're going along and doing their thing. And the thing is, we start seeing that everything starts going kind of nutty and snowballing towards a certain point, because we've got the Sunny off, they're trying to deal with the whole factory, the Tontata are trying to do their kind of thing. Usopp is able to make Sugar pass out. We need her to go unconscious for her power to pretty much stop working on all the people. That would free all the people. They'd be able to go and free the Tontata. The Tontata are very easily swayed. I mean, Usopp pretty much talks about pretty much him being a descendant of Noland. Noland? Yes. And that he's a hero and whatnot. And that we see that 500 Tontata are pretty much working in the Smile Factory, because Doflamingo has captured their Princess Anchuri, and she's got healing powers, and the thing is, she's captured, so they got to do what they can, even though the ones outside and not under the kind of slavery system that's going on at this point are like, fuck that, we're going to fight this shit. After pretty much Usopp is able to do that and getting severely fucked up along the way, Doflamingo's like, pretty much goes into DEFCON kind of mode. I.e., they fucked me, I'm gonna fuck them. And institutes this whole birdcage scenario, which is kind of where everything kind of starts stopping at my kind of cutoff point. He's like, alright, he pretty much assigns, he pretty much is like, okay, you either have to kill me, or you have to kill these people that I put bounties on, and put the highest bounty on Usopp because he completely fucks shit over, and pretty much seeing this whole kind of death game kind of playing out because he wants to destroy the world. Because we learned that in his connection with Law. Law used to run with him and wanted to destroy the world as well. Granted, I might be going a little bit further in with that, but we learned that he was really well together with Doflamingo's brother, Corazon. But we don't know much more at the point that I'm stopping. I know that's kind of weird, but I know we're going to be getting to it. Let's see. It was kind of weird that they had to use the Tontada kind of hot Tabasco kind of thing to try and knock out Sugar, when you would think that Usopp would utilize a sleep star that he used extensively in Punk Hazard to knock out the children. Now, granted, the thing is that this could have been explained in that he didn't restock or didn't know how to, because they just went from Punk Hazard all the way there, so they didn't have a stop-off point for, like, resupply, so not that big of a deal. I did like Luffy thinking of the kingdom when Law accuses him of not thinking and just pissing off Kaido by taking out Doflamingo. It's like, we can't leave these people here. Yeah, there we go. Those were my little notes that I had written down. I think I've got main on the ones. Frankie pretty much goes after the Tontada factory because we get into a point where Pika, not like Pikachu, but this dude that can utilize the Devil Fruit power to utilize stone, moves certain things into a certain kind of way, taking the pals, moving it on top of Flower Hill, taking out the factory and putting it into a more secure place. It kind of moves around the kind of battlefield. We see that people are at first happy that Usopp was able to get them out of being slaves and toys, but then once the bounty thing kicks in, we see pretty much the townspeople attempting to regain control and get out of this death game, and certain ones from the Colosseum and the fighters going after them, but yet Luffy was able to pretty much bring these people together with pretty much Don Jin Chao and like Cavendish, who he calls Cabbage, who is just pissed off at him because he gets the limelight, and it's like, god damn it, dude, fuck you. And all the rest of these kind of like high ones that we saw in the tournament are coming together, banding together, and getting under Luffy to go after Doflamingo. And it's really kind of nutty because most of the people of Dressrosa do not understand that your best bet is to all join together and take out Doflamingo, because he doesn't give a shit. He will not honor whatever words he puts forth. He's going to do whatever is in his best interest. He will murder the entire island to keep his secret and then write it off. He's connectioned to the celestial dragons and the world government. He will do this. He would potentially use his backing for Kaido as one of the emperors to do the same and pretty much get away with it in the new world. This motherfucker does not give a shit. He is a really good and effective villain, and I can't wait to see what kind of happens towards the end of this arc, because his thought processes are very interesting. One bit, okay, I don't know if this is a little bit, I've been watching him like back to back to back, so this could be a little bit forward, but we see that he is pissed off that somebody was laughing at Pika's voice, mainly because he had lost his mother when he was 8, he killed his father when he was 10, and that he views the family that he's put together as his family, and nobody fucks with that. So it's a very interesting kind of thing to like get into that kind of mindset, understand how he views the family, how he views certain ones that are close to him, because we've seen that the string fruit power is a very good power for him because he's a manipulative asshole. He will use anyone and anything to any kind of advantage that he can gain. He's able to even utilize the string fruit power to create string clones of himself. And he's able to fly with them. He's able to control people with them. It's a very versatile power and very works within his manipulative nature of trying to change anything to his own advantage. And it's nice to get that kind of depth for these characters. It was nice to see that Frankie was moved by the Tontada, and I was like, we've got to help these people because he's the one that does the call to action for Luffy, and that's where he decides that they'll stay there, help out the kingdom, and have the Sunny kind of move on, as we had last seen that Sanji was pretty much taking point to protect them from the blasts of Big Mom's ship. So that's a pin we're going to have to deal with. I do like that we're getting more on Law and how he kind of views what's going on, how he's trying to do this, how Luffy gets into conflict with him, and he's like, we should have just done this to then use Kaido to pretty much take out Doflamingo. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of do that, but you're here now, and everything's kind of moving at a faster kind of pace. You have to deal with this. Rebecca's an interesting character of not wanting to hurt people, but learning combat from her father in the form of the toy soldier, and her pretty much just tossing people into the water from the platforms. She's a very kind of interesting character as well. I like the kind of different princesses that they have interspersed throughout this story so far. Vivi, Shirahoshi, now Rebecca, and Viola, and how Rebecca and Viola kind of have different tactics of how they kind of fight against Doflamingo. How she's been pretty much in the Colosseum and hasn't been injured and has been like doing her best. Sabo coming back like that and getting the flame fruit worked very well. And then his fight with Fujitora was, they do some really good work. The flame versus the kind of gravity press power is really kind of cool, and I do like them kind of trying to figure out each one's kind of play. Sabo, of course, being of the Revolutionary Army, has been trying to figure out all this stuff with the guns, and pretty much Doflamingo doing war profiteering and pretty much setting other countries up against each other and giving different arms to every kind of side, because his partner, Koala, is able to find these kind of arms, and these assholes were pretty much trying to burn them and get rid of the evidence. So we've got a lot of different kind of things going on. If Doflamingo is taken out, we don't just have an emperor that gets pissed off because he's lost his access to his artificial devil fruit army powers. We've got gun running. We've got nations at war because of Doflamingo. It all kind of like spirals out web-wise, which of course goes back to the whole string fruit. It's really kind of nuts how much is packed into this. That's why I wish it was just executed a little bit differently to flow a little bit better. This isn't a horrendous one at all, and I don't hate any of the things that are going on. It's just, I think we could have had a nice better kind of progression, because sometimes we're going on a lot of stuff, I'm like, I'm not really that into what's kind of going on. Like when the Tontada, when we get a little bit further in, there's this one that focuses on the Tontada, and the thing is, Frankie is fighting this dude, Senor Pink, and them kind of going around trying to find the princess and everything. It just was like, okay, this almost feels like wheel spinning at this point. Like, I don't mind this, but this could have been done in a way where we could have other kind of things getting fleshed out a little bit better. And I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit bleed over effect, but that kind of happens when you're like watching it kind of the way I am, because we mainly stop when we get to Fujitora and Sabo kind of fighting at episode 59. So we've got this going on. We've got the whole birdcage. We'll see what kind of goes on from here, how it kind of escalates, what kind of falls through and goes in, because Doflamingo is an adversary that, like, Luffy does want to kick his ass. Granted, I think everybody would agree that that's the correct course of action, but we do see that Doflamingo is pretty competent fighter in and of its own right. His fight with Law slash kind of Fujitora. It was a kind of weird, kind of three-way kind of skirmish on Greenbit, where the Tontada reside. He's not going to be an easy one to kind of go after. Luffy is going to have to think a little bit more, and a little bit more tactically in how he employs his Gum Fruit powers, his Haki, all that kind of stuff. Granted, he is butting heads with Law, but it would be better to pretty much team up and do it, because I know Luffy wants to do that kind of stuff alone. However, he has usually been able to do his best kind of work when he has the help of his friends as well. Like when we saw in Thriller Bark with Gecko Moria. He got fucked up, but everybody was kind of fucked up at that point, and they were still able to beat him. So I do look forward to seeing what goes on with this, and I do understand why people like Doflamingo as a villain. They do a very good job of setting up who this character is. Granted, I'm probably going to get more information on what goes on through the latter half of this season and arc, but he is nasty, man. Which is a hard thing to accomplish after seeing Caesar. Caesar got my shit when he was pretty much experimenting on children and being a dick and just being like, I'm going to kill people. And this is the dude that would employ someone like that and force someone to murder people against their will. Because when he's utilizing this birdcage, he does the same thing again with others, utilizing his parasite strings to force other people to kill their loved ones and their friends and everything. And it's just, he needs to be stopped. And the world government allows this motherfucker to be within the warlords because of his connections probably to the celestial dragons. Which, if you have a group that can do that kind of shit and just say, you know what? If any kind of other pirate or any kind of other person had done this shit, you would have impelled down the motherfucker. But no, you just... Oh, man. This really starts to kind of cement that the world government is just a bigger pirate gang. I mean, granted, when you think about it, when you get to organizations of that size, yeah, it's just that bigger doing that kind of stuff because they feel they've got the power and they've got the authority and they've got all these things behind them to do this shit. And that's not right. As we see Luffy and his Straw Hat crew fighting that again and again because it's like, no. That's not right. That's not what you should be doing. And it's cool to examine that and see what's going on with this. And it was cool for the Tontada to explore what's kind of going on with also the lost 100 years and everything with how their kind of history went back. And I can't wait for that stuff to kind of come up to the front as well with the poneglyphs and for Nico's kind of part to take a little bit more effect. It was also kind of nice to see that she was familiar with Koala and Sabo as well, because Sabo is the chief of staff of the Revolutionary Army, pretty much the second in command, kind of similar to it seems like a similar kind of situation of Ace being the kind of second for Whitebeard, where Sabo is the second for Dragon. And I hope we do see that Dragon and Luffy interact at some point. That I'm going to be looking forward to. Just to see who Dragon is as a character, because we haven't really had much of him at this point. We have seen the people that he's surrounded himself with, which kind of gives us a kind of feel of how his crew's kind of. We've seen a little bit of Gold Roger with Riley. We also see... Sorry, I just remembered because Buggy's with that. Buggy is one of the warlords because the Navy doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, to be honest. But we see that the kind of protagonists or these kind of good guy kind of ones have similar kind of crews. I mean, they might be pirates and they might follow certain kind of pirate rules or whatnot, but we see that they have these kind of similarities because of who's kind of they're employed. We see Sabo working with them. We see Eva, like even Shanks's crew. It's kind of cool to kind of see those kind of ways work out, but I would definitely be interested to see how Dragon works under that and how he kind of commands his people. We've gotten just little bits of that, but I'd like to see that and also see him interact with Luffy as well. So it's kind of more of a kind of broad stroke because we've got so much going on in this Dressrosa arc. And I mean, even though it's long and I've got just some... I got some problems with the execution. They're not gigantic problems. I'm still loving what's going on. The characters work very well. I love that the disguises pretty much work to like a certain kind of extent, but certain people were able to call it like the Don Jin Chao was like straw hat, and it's like, yep, straw hat. And he went into the tournament and called himself Lucy instead of Luffy. Oh god, and all the kind of issues that like occurred from that. The comedy was on point. It worked pretty well in that. I hope that they tone down Bartolomeo, though. I know that he's probably going to be in for a little bit. I don't know how much, but it's just... he just needs a little bit of a tweaking. He didn't need to be this annoying. I don't mind him being uber fanboy, but put it off into the distance and be like, okay... he's doing his fanboying over there. We're actually dealing with the plot stuff over here. Let's see. I think I've hit most of the main interesting bits that I wanted to and kind of expounded on them. So, if there's anything that you feel that I missed or whatnot and want to talk about, of course, talk about them in the comments below. Bring them up. I love the discussions of what's going on. I understand why people love this show so much, because now I've got that same love as well, because they understand their characters, they understand the world, and they understand their plot, and they interweave them very well to make a very compelling story of what's going on. Now, the main kind of quibbles that come into effect are the main things of like adapting a work that's still ongoing. Sometimes you have to pretty much put in filler or pretty much try and pad out as much as possible. So I don't really put that annoyance squarely on One Piece. I understand that's a problem with certain kind of anime and certain adaptations when you choose to adapt them. So, I mean, I've been watching anime for decades at this point, which is nuts to say. I mean, Toonami got me into that. So, I'm just really glad that I've been going through this, even now. Of course, when you're like, it's like 1,000 episodes in, good luck, asshole. It's like, challenge accepted. Like, I didn't expect it to grab me in, but I do. I'm glad that I'm going through this to see the other kind of arcs. I know that we got Zao next. There's, of course, Whole Cake. Of course, Wano. Egghead? Might be missing some, but those are like the main big ones, and I can't wait to kind of see what kind of happens and shakes out, because there's consequences that happen for this, for what goes on in these stories, and it's always interesting to see what happens and how it kind of builds and spirals off, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Doflamingo, what happens with Doflamingo, and what happens with Dressrosa, because this is big. I mean, granted, you have your whole kind of escalation problems that sometimes occur within anime, but we've been building up to these kind of things, and this is another kind of big change that, depending upon what happens in Dressrosa, can affect a lot of different things. Of course, the emperors, the world government, other nations as well. I'm fucking stoked to see what goes on with this. So those are my opinions on this arc, part 1. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.